Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to see the discussion of the prelims practice questions of week 4th of December. So let's get started with our discussion. So in this lecture, we are going to discuss the solutions for 30 questions regarding the current affairs. So let us get started with our discussion. And if you see the first question, it says, Kilauea volcano, which was recently in the news for its eruption, is situated in which country? So this question which is demanding that to which country this volcano belongs to. And if you see the options, it says Indonesia, USA, Singapore and Japan. So if the students you are following news regularly, then you can easily answer this question. So it is USA. So if you don't know the answer, please leave this question because you cannot go for the guessing in this type of questions. And if you see the explanation regarding this, so this Kilauea, it is also called as a Mount Kilauea, so which is mainly located in the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And this Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, which is located in the southern western part of island Hawaii, which is present in the USA. And if you see one important thing regarding this mountain that you should remember here is it is one of the world's most active volcano, and we can see there is also a crater present. So what is this crater? So this crater which is the topic regarding the geography. So if you have any mountain that is present, for example, if you see it is a volcanic mountain. So after bursting, what happened, the magma which is present inside the volcano, that will come outside as a lava, right? So after the lava which getting outside, then it will, first of all, what happened, whenever this magma which is coming outside, it will lead to the burst of the top side of the volcano. So after bursting of this volcano, it will forms a small hole like structure which is at the top of the volcano. So this hole like structure which is mainly called as a crater. So this volcano mainly contains a central crater. And if you see the height of this volcano, it is about 4090 foot, that is 1250 meter. And it also has a collapsed form of caldera. So what is this caldera? So if you see, let us take this as a mountain, that is volcanic mountain. So what happened here, we see magma is present. And here we can see outlet of the magma, right? So there may be the different forms of the outlets that will also come laterally. So what happened, whenever the lava which is coming outside, what happened, through this outlets, later on it will collapse. So later on it will forms this like mountain, okay, with a crater upside. So this type of volcanoes, they are called as calderas. Okay, so this caldera, it is a depression which is mainly created after the volcano partially collapsing after releasing the majority of the magma. Okay, so after releasing the majority of the magma, what happened, through this ways, these ways will be now hollow. So because of this will be collapsed down, and this type of the volcanoes, they are called as calderas. And now let us see the next question. Consider the following statements with respect to shigellosis disease. This shigellosis disease which is in the news, and that news mainly appeared in the PIB. So I selected this topic. So if you see the statement which are given under this shigellosis, the first one, it says that it is a contagious intestinal infection which is caused by virus. So this is the first statement. And the next one is the main symptoms of this disease include diarrhea, which often contain the blood. So how you can answer this question? First, you need to see whether this disease which is caused by the virus or not. So if you are confirmed that this is not caused by the virus, then you can eliminate this statement. Okay. So if you see this shigellosis disease which is mainly caused by the bacteria, not by the virus, so you can eliminate one in these two. And if you see this second statement, it mainly says that the main symptoms of this disease that include diarrhea, and this diarrhea mainly contain blood in the stools. So this statement which is correct. So whenever you are seeing any disease which is in the news, you need to see the causative organism, you need to see the signs and symptoms, and as well as the transmission as well. And if you see this second statement is correct, so the correct answer will be 2 only. Now let us see the explanation regarding this question. So this shigellosis is mainly in the news because health officials in this Kozhikode district of Kerala began the preventive measures after 6 cases of Shigella infection that is seen. So if you are talking about this shigellosis, it is also called as Shigella infection, which is one of the contagious intestinal infection mainly caused by the bacteria, and the name of this bacteria it is Shigella. So this bacteria it is one of the prime pathogen which is mainly responsible for causing of this diarrhea. So why diarrhea which is caused whenever we see the intestinal infection? So as we know, whatever the food we take in, that will goes into the stomach, and from the stomach it will enter into the small intestine, and later on it will enter into the large intestine. So whenever any infection that is caused in the intestine, that will lead to some irritation here. So because of the irritation, we see there is a diarrhea that happens. So because of this organism mainly, that will also rupture this intestinal wall. So because of this, we can see there is a blood in the stools. Okay. So this bacteria, after entering in the body through the ingestion, that means from the mouth, it will attack the epithelial lining of colon, mainly result in the inflammation of that cell. That will finally lead to the destruction of the cells in the severe cases, that means in the advanced cases. So because of this, we can see the blood which is seen in the stools. If you see the symptoms, they include diarrhea, often bloody and as well as painful. So because of the infection that is happening in the intestine, we can also experience a stomach pain, sometimes nausea, vomiting and as well as fever. So these are the symptoms. And if you see the transmission, it will spread from person to person whenever the bacteria which is swallowed accidentally. So whenever there are any stools which are released by the patient, so if there are any flies or any mosquitoes which are sitting on that stools, and these mosquitoes and these house flies, they are mainly vectors. They will carry these pathogens which are present in the stools into the food particles. So whenever there is any contamination of the food that happens with this bacteria, then it will also causes the transmission of this disease from one person to another person. And let us see the next question. Consider the following statements with respect to Great Indian Bustards. So this Great Indian Bustards is in news, and we also discussed article regarding the Great Indian Bustards in our Hindu analysis. So now let us see the statements regarding this Great Indian Bustard. The first one is IUCN status of this bird, it is critically endangered. Second one is Indian Great Bustard Sanctuary, which is located in the state of Karnataka. We discuss each and every fact regarding this Great Indian Bustard in our Hindu analysis. The students who are following my Hindu analysis, they can easily answer this. So as we know, this Great Indian Bustard which is critically endangered under IUCN Red List. So the first statement will be correct. And the next one is the Great Indian Bustard Sanctuary which is located in the state of Rajasthan, not in the Karnataka. So we can eliminate this statement too. So the correct answer will be only one. But if you see here, this question asked which of the above statements are incorrect. Don't do this type of silly mistake. So whenever you know the answer, just we'll go and you'll take the right answer, right? So we need to read whether it is a correct or incorrect. So first we need to see and underline whether we need to choose a correct answer or incorrect answer. So here this question demanded incorrect answer. So here incorrect is here second statement only. So the answer will be B2 only. And let us see the explanation. Here Great Indian Bustards, they are listed under critically endangered in the IUCN Red List, and they are also listed in the Schedule 1 of Indian Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and they are identified as one of the species for recovery program under Integrated Development of Wildlife Habitats under the Ministry of Environment and Forest. So this will also important for prelims. And this project of Great Indian Bustard came up in the state of Rajasthan. So state of Rajasthan mainly going for the identifying the threats for the decrease in the number of this Great Indian Bustard, and they found that electrification. Okay, whenever they are flying, so electrification that is leading to the death of this Great Indian Bustard, and they are coming with one innovative. So because of this Great Indian Bustards is in news. And if you see the protected areas, they include Desert National Park Sanctuary, which is located in the state of Rajasthan. And next one is Rollapudu Wildlife Sanctuary, located in the state of Andhra Pradesh. and Karera Wildlife Sanctuary, which is present in the state of Madhya Pradesh. So these are also very important regarding prelims. So you need to remember this national parks and as well as wildlife sanctuary which comes in the news, because you can get at least one question regarding the national parks and the wildlife sanctuaries in your prelims. And now let us see the habitats in India. So only two districts in Rajasthan, that is Jaisalmer and Barmer, they have the breeding population of this great Indian bustard in the wild, and the bird also found in very small numbers in other states like Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra and as well as Andhra Pradesh. And now let us see the next question. Question is, consider the following statement with respect to parliamentary committees. So in Hindu, we already discussed about one important editorial regarding the parliamentary committees and their relevance. So because of this, now this question is here. So now let us see the statements. The first one is, standing committees will be constituted every year or periodically and work on the continuous basis. That means it is saying about the permanent. So these standing committees are permanent. And the second statement here is, ad hoc committees, they are temporary and they cease to exist on the completion of the task which is assigned to them. So as we know, we discussed in the union executive and as well as state legislature that here parliamentary committees are mainly two types, standing committees and as well as ad hoc committees. So as we know, these standing committees, they are permanent in nature, and we have the ad hoc committees, they are temporary in nature. So that was the statement which is asking here. And if you see here, it is mainly demanding that which of the above statements are correct. As we know, these two statements are correct. The answer will be both 1 and 2. And if you are talking about the standing committees, they are permanent and they may be constituted every year or periodically. And if you are talking about the types of the standing committees, there are mainly 6 groups like financial committees, departmental standing committees, committees to inquire, committees to scrutinize and control, committees regarding the day-to-day business of the house, housekeeping committees or service committees. And ad hoc committees, they are temporary in nature. And now let us see the next question. Question says, consider the following statements. So the first statement here is, National Commission for Minorities, it is a constitutional body and 5 communities are notified as religious minorities. The tenure of the members of this National Commission for Minorities is 3 years. So choose the correct answer. So this is the important topic in our polity, right? So this is a direct question I took from the Polity Lakshmikant. So the National Commission for Minorities, it is not a constitutional body. So we can eliminate 1 easily. So the answer will be 3 only. So in this way, elimination method will be very helpful to choose the correct answer. So here there are not 5 committees, there are 6 communities are present. They are notified as religious minorities. So now let us see the explanation. Here National Committees on Minority, it is a statutory body. So statutory bodies means they will be created under one act. So under National Commission for Minorities Act 1992, so this body came into existence. And there are about 6 communities. They include Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis. And now let us move to the next question. The city of Barsa is located in which country? Option A is Saudi Arabia, option B is Iran, option C is Syria and option D is Iraq. So why this city of Basra which is in news? Because United States decided to close down this Basra. Okay, so mainly USA want to close down the consulate which is located at the Basra. So where is this Basra located? So it is located in the country Iran. So this is very important. So in this way, whenever you see any place which is present in the news, so you can expect a prelims question. So in this way, you can frame the question. Okay, you can expect question in your UPSC. And the next question is, consider the following statement. And the first statement is, India is the largest fish producing country in the world. Next one is, fisheries sectors in the India, they contribute more than 5% to the country's GVA, that is gross value added. So this question which is demanding which of the above statements are incorrect. So whenever you are saying incorrect, you have to underline this. If you see the first statement, it says that India is the largest fish producing country in the world. But if you see India, it is not the first producing country. It is the second largest producing country in the world and the first place which is occupied by the China. So the first statement is wrong. And the next one is fisheries sector in the India contributes more than 5%. If you see in India, agriculture which is mainly contributing about 7% to the gross value added. But when you are seeing the fisheries, it is just 1.24%. So this statement is also wrong. So the incorrect statements are 1 and 2. So the answer will be both 1 and 2. And if you see the explanation, it mainly says that fisheries and aquaculture, which is continue to be the important sources of food, nutrition, income, livelihood to the millions of the people in India. So if you're talking about the export earnings, so export earnings from this fishery sector in the year 2019 to 2020, it stood about rupees 46,662 crores. And if you're talking about this sector mainly provides a livelihood support to about 280 lakh people and also twice the number who are mainly present in the value chain. That means from one area to another area, fish is exported, right? Export and import of the fishes that can be taken. So in this food chain, about that is 560 lakh people, they are involved. So in this way, directly or indirectly, it is providing the employment. And the next one is fish being an affordable and as well as rich source of animal protein, and it is also rich source of vitamin A and vitamin D as well. So in this way, this fish will also helpful to mitigate the hunger and as well as nutrient deficiency that is facing by the Indian. And the next one is India is also the second largest fish producing country and the first place occupied by the China. So the first statement is wrong. And the fishery sector mainly contributing about 1.24% to the country's gross value added. So the second statement is also wrong. And now let us see the next question. Consider the following statements regarding Barak 8 missile. So we discussed number of times regarding this Barak 8 missile in our PIB analysis. So now let us see the statements. The first one is it is a beyond visual range air to air missile. So if you are talking about missiles, we have surface to surface, surface to air, air to air. So we need to see whether it is air to air missile or not. And the next one is it has been jointly developed by Israel Ministry of Defense and the DRDO, that is Defense Research and Development Organization. So as we know, this second statement is conformly correct. So what about this? So if you want to answer this type of question, there is a need of clarity in you, whether it is surely correct or not. So this Barak 8 missile, which is a surface to air missile but not air to air. So the first statement is wrong. So the correct answer is B2 only. So if you see the explanation, it mainly says that Barak 8 surface to air missile defense system, which provides a 360-degree defense against the various airborne attacks. And it is mainly jointly developed by the Israel Ministry of Defense and as well as DRDO, that is Defense Research and Development Organization. And it will also provide some ultimate protection against a variety of aerial platforms in the land and as well as in the naval. And now let us see the next question. So what is variant under investigation VUI 2020-12-01? It is 2020-12-01. So what is this? Options here are, the first one is a new variant of SARS coronavirus. Second one is potential BCG vaccine variant for COVID-19. Spyware attack on US government agencies. Sample from Bennu asteroid. So if you see the sample from Bennu asteroid, it is also in the news. And the spyware attack on the US government agencies, it is also in the news. And new variant of SARS coronavirus, it is also in the news. So you can simply eliminate this one. So what might be the answer in these three? So if you are talking about this thing, that is variant under investigation, if you know the full form of this, that is 2020-12-01. So this 2020, it is a year and 12 here, it is a December month. So whenever you know the full form, you can try to answer this. This answer is here: a new variant of SARS coronavirus 2. Mainly it is a new strain of mutated coronavirus which mainly identified in UK. Now let us see the explanation. A new variant of SARS coronavirus, that is variant under investigation, also referred as B117, which has been reported by the government of United Kingdom to the World Health Organization. And this variant mainly estimated by the European Centre for Disease Control, and it said that it has 70% more transmissible and it will affect the younger population at last. And we saw there are 17 changes or the 17 mutations that happen in this, and one important mutation mainly seen in the spike protein, that is N501Y mutation. So because of this spike protein mutation, so normally these spike proteins which are mainly present on the surface of this virus, so these spike proteins plays an important role to attach to any receptors to enter into the cell. So normally this coronavirus mainly attaches to the human ACE2 receptor. Okay. So because of the mutations which are seen in the spike protein, that is led to the 70% more transmissibility. So these are the some things that you should remember. Now let us see the next question. Consider the following statements regarding post-matric scholarship to students belonging to scheduled caste scheme. So we already discussed in detail about this scheme in our Hindu analysis. So if you see the statements, it mainly says that it allows the students to pursue any post-matric course starting from class 11th onwards, with the government meeting the cost of the education. So it says that whenever the students from the scheduled caste, that is only eligible student, not all the students. So the students eligible under this scheme, whenever they are going for the post-matric education, that is from the 11th class onwards, the cost will be bared by the government. So this is the first statement. And the next one is, states will undergo foolproof verification for eligibility under this scheme. So it will go for the foolproof verification. So this question mainly demanding that which of the statements given above are correct. So the demand here is we need to identify the correct statements. So if you see, these two statements are exactly correct. So answer will be both 1 and 2. So if you see the explanation why this post-matric scholarship scheme is in use, because there are some major changes that made by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs regarding this centrally sponsored scheme. So whenever we are talking about the schemes, we come across two important things. That is, first one is centrally sponsored scheme and the second one is center sector schemes. So central sponsored schemes means the funding will be divided between the center and the state, and the center sector means 100% funding that will be coming from the center itself. So this scheme, that is post-matric scholarship scheme, that is a central sponsored scheme. That means the funding which is divided between the center and the states. And Cabinet mainly approved the total investment of rupees 59,048 crores for this scheme, and the central government will spend 60% and the state government, they should spend 40%. So because of these changes, there is an increase in the involvement of the central government in this education of this SC people. Okay. And if you are talking about the statements 2, that mainly says that this scheme will also run an online platform. So this online platform will contain the robust cyber security measures such that through this online platform we can ensure transparency, accountability, efficiency and as well as timely delivery of assistance without any delay. And also this scheme will undertake the foolproof verification of eligibility, of caste status, Aadhaar identification, even bank account identification. So this will all done through online platform. So because of this, the statement 2 also correct. And now let us see the next question. Consider the following statements regarding Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. So we already discussed number of times regarding this PM Kisan in our Hindu analysis and as well as PIB analysis. Now let us see the statements. It is a centrally sponsored scheme. Second one is the responsibility of identification of beneficiary farmers. They are rest with the state and as well as the union territory government. And the next one is persons who paid income tax last assessment year, they will not be eligible under this scheme. So if you see regarding this PM Kisan, why is this in the news? Because West Bengal Chief Minister came up with a statement that this PM Kisan scheme which is not benefiting the farmers of the West Bengal. So because of this, I selected this topic for the question. So if you see the first statement, it is 100% wrong, because the 100% funding will come from the center. So it is a central sector scheme. So we can eliminate the first statement. So here the demand of question is we need to identify the correct statements. So the first statement is wrong. And if you are talking about the second statement, it is a responsibility of the state or union territory government to identify the beneficiaries. So it is a right statement. So if you see the second statement, only it is present in one option. So the answer is 2 and 3. And let us see the explanation. Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, that is PM Kisan, it is a central sector scheme. So the 100% funding which come from the government of India, that is central government. And under this scheme, beneficiaries will get the income support of 6,000 rupees per year irrespective of land holding. Earlier, this scheme only applicable for the farmers who are having less than 2 hectares of land. But later on, the changes which are made in this scheme, and now all the farmer families, they are eligible under this scheme now. So they will get 3 equal installments, that is 2,000 per installments. And the entire responsibility of the identification of the beneficiary, that lies with the state or the union territory government. And the persons who paid the income tax in the last assessment year, they will not eligible. So these are the some important things that you should remember. And now let us see the next question. Title says consider the following statements with respect to Jallikattu. So this Jallikattu is in the news because Tamil Nadu government allowed this Jallikattu for this Pongal. So if you see the statements, it is referred as bull taming event, and this is celebrated as a part of Pongal celebrations. It is right, but it is not in the state of Kerala, but in the state of Tamil Nadu. So the second statement is wrong. So the answer will be 1 only. Okay. And if you see the explanation, it says that Tamil Nadu government has permitted Jallikattu to be held across the state during this coming Pongal season, that is the Sankranti. So this Jallikattu mainly refers to a bull taming event which mainly practiced in the Tamil Nadu as a part of Pongal. So it is one of the cultural event, right? And this Jallikattu mainly derived from the Tamil words Jalli and Kattu. Jalli mainly refers to the gold or silver coins. Kattu means tied. And if you see regarding this Jallikattu, we also see the reference to this Jallikattu in our ancient text like Shilpadikaram. It is one of the great epics of Tamil, mainly came in the Sangam period or Sangam literature, and also other ancient literary works like Malai Padukadam and as well as Kalitugai. So in this text also we saw there is a reference regarding this Jallikattu. So in this way we can say this Jallikattu, it is an ancient sport. And also one cave painting also depicts man who is controlling a bull. And if you see regarding this Jallikattu, in 2014 Supreme Court banned this Jallikattu because of the petitions which are mainly filed by the animal welfare organizations, etc. But Tamil Nadu government also passed one amendment to this act, that is the Prevention of Cruelty Act to Animals, and it mainly said that, and because of this amendment which is signed by the president, so this amendment mainly that allowed this Jallikattu, which is to be held as a cultural event in the state. So this is about some facts regarding this Jallikattu. And now let us see the next question. Consider the following statement with respect to Permanent Court of Arbitration. So this Permanent Court of Arbitration is in use because of the retrospective tax. We also discussed editorial regarding this Crane Energy Limited regarding this retrospective tax. And if you see some statements which are given here regarding this Permanent Court of Arbitration, the first one is PCA. It is an intergovernment organization which established by the treaty at the First Hague Peace Conference in 1899. So this statement is correct. And the next one is India is a member of PCA. This is also correct. So the correct statements here are both 1 and 2. Now let us see the explanation. Recently, Permanent Court of Arbitration has ruled that Indian government was wrong mainly in applying the retrospective tax regarding this giant crane, that is energy giant crane. So if you see some facts regarding this PCA, it is the intergovernment organization which was established by the treaty in the first Hague Peace Conference which held in the Netherlands in 1899. And it is not a court, but it is a permanent framework for the arbitral tribunals. And this PCA mainly helps to facilitate the arbitration and also other forms of dispute resolution as well. So it may include the combinations like state entities, international organization and private parties. And it is also the first permanent intergovernmental organization which mainly provides a forum for the resolution of international disputes, mainly through the arbitration and as well as other peaceful means. So in this way, this will be important. Okay. So PCA has 121 member states. So out of this 119, they are from the United Nations. So under this, India is also present. India is also the party of this Hague Convention. And the next question is, Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary is located in which state? Options here is Maharashtra, second one is Kerala, third one is Andhra Pradesh and fourth one is Karnataka. So as we know, this Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary which is located in which state? It is in news, right? So it is in the Andhra Pradesh. So answer is answer C. So if you see some facts regarding this Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary, it is located in the Andhra Pradesh state, and this Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary which is home for the numerous species of flora and as well as fauna, and it is situated in the region in the estuary. Estuary means whenever the river meeting the sea, we can see there is a formation of estuary there. And this Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary, it is also one of the major tourist hub as well. And now let us see the next question. Consider the following statements regarding the Western Ghats. This Western Ghats which is highly in the news. So if you see the statement, it mainly says that the first one is Western Ghats is spread across 7 states. Western Ghats is one of the biodiversity hotspots of India. Western Ghats is listed among the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So if you are talking about UNESCO World Heritage Site, this Western Ghats which is listed, right? So this statement is correct. So 3 is present in these 3 options. And if you see the second statement, it mainly says that Western Ghats is one of the biodiversity hotspots. So if you see in India, we have 4 biodiversity hotspots. First one is Himalayas, second one is Western Ghats, third one is Indo-Burma region and fourth one is Sundaland. So the Western Ghats which is the one of the biodiversity hotspots. So this second statement is correct. And the first statement is wrong because it spread across only 6 states. So the answer will be B, 2 and 3 only. So those 6 states are Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Goa and Kerala. Okay. And now let us see the next question. Question is, consider the following statements regarding Central Information Commission. This Central Information Commission is also in news recently. We already discussed about some details regarding the Central Information Commission in our Hindu analysis. In Hindu, we also discussed about one editorial regarding this Central Information Commission regarding the electoral bonds scheme. Correct? I hope you will recall all this. So the statements are Central Information Commission, it is an executive body. Second one is Central Information Commission, commissioner is not eligible for reappointment. So the question is demanding to identify the correct statements. So if you see the first statements, it is wrong because it is a statutory body, because this Central Information Commission mainly established under Right to Information Act of 2005. And the second statement is correct. So correct answer is B, 2 only. So if you see the explanation, Central Information Commission is a statutory body under Right to Information Act of 2005. And Chief Information Commissioner hold the office for the term of 5 years and he shall not be eligible for the reappointment. If you are talking about the Information Commissioner, he also not eligible for reappointment, but he can eligible for the post of Chief Information Commissioner. So these are some important things that you should remember. And now let us see the next question. Global Environment Outlook released by, the first option is UNESCO, second one is UNEP, third one is World Bank, fourth one is Niti Aayog. So if you see this Global Environment Outlook, which is very important for prelims, so in prelims you can expect 1 to 2 questions regarding this indices, which organization will release which index. So I included this one. So this Global Environment Outlook mainly released by UNEP, so answer will be B. So if you see the explanation, it says that Global Environment Outlook, it is a series of reports on environment issued periodically by the UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Programme. And this Global Environment Outlook, which is mainly initiated in response to the environment requirements of UN Agenda 21. So mainly to meet this United Nations Agenda 21, so it will be very important. And let us see the next question. Consider the following statements regarding zero coupon bond. So this zero coupon bond is in news, and about this zero coupon bond, the news which came in the Indian Express. Now let us see the statements here. The first one is it does not offer any profit at maturity. Second one is it trades at higher price than the face value. So if you are talking about the zero coupon bond, so it do not have any interest. So there will be no profit at maturity. So the first statement is correct. And if you see, they will be sold at the higher than the face value. So the second one is also correct. So the correct option is both 1 and 2. And if you see the explanation, it says that zero coupon bond, it is a debt security that does not pay the interest, but instead it trades at a deep discount rates. That means whatever the face value is present, for example the face value is 100, but it can be sold at 80 or 70 or 90. So because of this it will be sold, right? So because of this it will provide some investor return here. So the difference between the purchase price of this zero coupon bond and that par value, so it is one of the investors return here, but there will be no return, no interest. And the next question here is the Tobul multi-purpose project, which is located in which of the following state? So this Tobul multi-purpose project is in news, and we also discussed about this in our PIB. So here option A is Manipur, option B Himachal Pradesh, option C is Assam, option D is Sikkim. So it is located in the state of Manipur. And if you see the explanation, recently Union Home Minister inaugurated several projects in the state of Manipur. So that also one of that project here is Tobul multi-purpose project. So this project mainly intended to generate electricity and to supply the water for irrigation and as well as drinking purposes. So this Tobul multi-purpose project was located mainly in the Madhipal Valley, which is located in the districts of Urkul and as well as Senapati. So this project was mainly approved by the Planning Commission in 1980s, and construction started in the 1989, and now inauguration happened. And let us see the next question. Which of the following vaccines they are provided under Universal Vaccination Program of Government of India? So this Universal Vaccination Program, it is highly in the news. So this question will be very important for upcoming prelims as well. So if you see the statements, it mainly says that Bacillus calamitigordin vaccine, hepatitis B, and pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, that is PCV. So the mainly question demanding that identify the correct answer. So if you see this Universal Vaccination Program, it is one of the largest health program in the world. So it includes all of these 3 vaccines. So answer will be all of the above. So if you see the explanation regarding this Universal Vaccination Program, so it is an immunization program in India, and it was introduced in 1978 as an expanded program of immunization which comes under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And later on in 1985, this scheme or this program mainly modified as Universal Immunization Program, and it is one of the largest health program in the world. So it includes wide range of vaccines that to be given to the children. They include BCG, that is Bacillus calamitigordin, and PC pentavalent vaccine. They contains mainly diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, Haemophilus influenza type B, hepatitis B, etc. It also includes rotavirus. It will mainly prevent diarrhea in children. Next one is pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, that is PCV. Measles vaccine, Japanese encephalitis, DPT booster dose, that is diphtheria, tetanus and pertussis, tetanus, adult diphtheria, etc. So all these are the vaccines which are included under this universal vaccination program. And now let us see the next question. The General Data Protection Regulation belongs to which of the following region? Option A is European Union. Option B is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Option C is Mercosur. Option D is NAFTA. The correct answer is European Union. So it is one of the privacy and as well as security law of the European Union. If you see the explanation, the General Data Protection Regulation, it is a privacy and the security law of European Union. So if you see it mainly includes some of the key privacy data provision. So it needs some requirements. They include requiring the consent of subject, anomalizing the collected data or to protect the privacy, and it will also provide the data breach notifications, safely handling and as well as the transfer of the data across the borders. So this is very, very important. And now let us see the next question. Question is, which of the following tribes is or correctly matched to respective states? So these tribes are news in because some of the news that came in the PIB regarding this Malayali tribes, they are going to include some more indigenous products into the tribe fed. So because of this Malayali tribe which is in the news because of the rock honey, giant rock honey. So let us see the tribes here. The first one is Malayali, the state is Tamil Nadu. Next one is Patelia, state is Madhya Pradesh. And third one is Oran, Jharkhand. Here the question which is demanding to select the correct answer, correct pair here. So if you see, as we know, this Malayali mainly they are seen in the northern part of the Tamil Nadu. So the first one is right. And Patiala also from the Madhya Pradesh. Oran is also from the Jharkhand. So the answer is all the above, option D. So if you see the explanation, here the Malayali, it is a tribal group mainly found in the eastern Ghats in the northern Tamil Nadu. So the name, that is Malayali, means hill place. They are the one of the largest scheduled tribe which is located in the state of Tamil Nadu. And if you are talking about this Patiala tribes, they are found in the Indian states like Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and also some populations are present in the states of Maharashtra and as well as Karnataka. So the term Patiala mainly means the headman. And the next one is Oran. Oran are the Dravidian speaking ethnic group. They are mainly inhabiting in the Indian states like Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha and Chhattisgarh. And now let us see the next question. Sokar wetland was recently in news. It is located in which state? So this Sokar wetland which is recently in the news because it is the 42nd Ramsar site in the India. So it is mainly located in the state of Ladakh. So the option B is the correct answer. So now let us see some explanation and the facts regarding this wetland. So India has added this Sokar wetland complex which is located in the Ladakh as it is a 42nd Ramsar site in India. So it is the second one which is mainly present in the Union Territory of Ladakh. And this Sokar basin, it is a high altitude wetland complex. It mainly contains two water bodies. The first one is a freshwater lake and second one is a hypersaline lake. Freshwater lake, it is a Start Sapuk So, and the next one is Sokar, which is a hypersaline lake. So why it is called as Sokar? Because what happened here, Sokar means white lake. So why it is called as a white lake? So as we know, this is a hypersaline lake. So because of the white salt efflorescence that are seen in the margins of this lake, it is called as a Sokar. And the next one is this Sokar basin. It is also an important bird life area which was recorded by the BirdLife International. And it is one of the important breeding site for the black-necked crane. And now let us see the next question. Consider the following statements regarding kolar leaf-nosed bat. So this kolar leaf-nosed bat mainly in the news, and we also studied about this in the down to earth. In the PDF of the current affairs, you also see about this kolar leaf-nosed bat. So this thing I took from the down to earth. So if you see the statements which are given, the first one is this species is endemic to Karnataka, and the next one is it is listed as a critically endangered in the IUCN Red List. So if you see the total population of this bat, it is only 150 which are left in one cave. So because of this, they are critically endangered. And the next one is they are endemic to Karnataka. It is absolutely true. So the correct statements are both 1 and 2. And if you see the explanation regarding this kola leaf-nosed bat, they are exclusive to Karnataka. Till few years back, there are only 2 caves which are found in the Karnataka. We see these bats are inhabiting in those 2 caves. But what happened in one cave, they are extincted. So now we see only 150 kola leaf-nosed bats are present in one cave. So they are also listed as critically endangered in the IUCN Red List. And now let us see the next question. Consider the following statements regarding carbon neutrality. So this carbon neutrality, which is very highly in the news. So there is high probability of getting question regarding this carbon neutrality. So now let us see the statements. The first one is it is achieved when anthropogenic CO2, that is carbon dioxide emissions, they are balanced by the anthropogenic carbon dioxide removals over a specific period. And the second statement here is India has targeted to achieve the carbon neutrality by 2050 as per its intended nationally determined contributions. So when you are reading this Paris climate deal, so you will come across this INDCs, that is intended nationally determined contributions. So if you see what is this carbon neutrality, how much amount of the carbon dioxide which is released, which is equal to the how much amount of the carbon dioxide which is absorbed. So emissions is equal to absorption, then this is called as a carbon neutrality. So the first statement is correct and the second statement is wrong because we didn't talk about this carbon neutrality targets in the INDCs, that is intended nationally determined contributions. So the correct answer here is only one, that is option A. And if you see, there is a net zero carbon dioxide emissions whenever we are achieved when the anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions, they are balanced by the anthropogenic carbon dioxide removals, then it is called as a carbon neutrality. And the next one is India's intended nationally determined contributions. They include 3 important things. The first one is to reduce the emission intensity, that is by 33 to 35% by 2030 below 2005 levels. So we are going to reduce our emissions. So this is a one important target. And the next one is to increase the non-fossil based energy. That means we need to increase our renewable energy resources up to 40% by 2030. So this can be done with the help of the transfer of technology mainly from the developed countries. And the next one is to create the additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 gigatons by 2030. So these are the 3 important targets under intended nationally determined contributions of India under Paris Climate Deal. And now let us see the next question. Which of the following ports are correctly matched to respective country? The first one is Sihanoukville Port, Cambodia, Na Rong Port, Vietnam, Kuntan Port, Malaysia. So why these ports are in news? So recently we already studied about Sagar 3 mission in our PIB analysis that mainly talked about this Sihanoukville Port of Cambodia. So as we know, if you read that article, you will come across this port. So what about these two? So these 2 ports are also regarding this Sagar 3 mission itself. So now let us see the explanation first and let us come back to this article again. So the Indian naval ship, that is INS Kilton, mainly carrying the humanitarian assistance as a part of ongoing mission, that is Sagar 3, arrived at Sihanoukville Port, which is located in the Cambodia, after offloading or after unloading the relief material for the flood affected people in the Vietnam Na Rong Port and as well as the Kuntan Port, which is located in the Malaysia. So this Na Rong Port, which is located in the Vietnam, and Kuntan Port in the Malaysia, and the next one is Sihanoukville Port, which is located in the Cambodia. So these 3 ports are correctly matched. So the answer is all the above, answer D. And the next question here is, Consider the following statements regarding Digital Ocean Platform launched by Ministry of Earth Sciences. So we also discussed about this Digital Ocean Platform in our PIB analysis in a great detail. So if you see the statements, the first statement says that it has been developed by Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, that is INCOIS. And the second statement here is it facilitates an online interactive data visualization that will help to assess the evolution of oceanographic features. So if you listen to that lecture, so you will easily answer to this question with 100% accuracy. So because these two statements are correct, so the answer is both 1 and 2. So if you see the explanation, Digital Ocean Platform, it is the first of its kind platform for the oceanic data management. It is mainly developed by INCOIS. And the next one is it includes a wide range of applications. It will also help to organize, present the heterogeneous oceanographic data. And we can also use the rapid advancement in the spatial technology such that it will also provide the 3D and 4D images. It will also provide the data analysis, data fusion, multi-format download, remote sensing and the model data, etc. So these are some important things that you should remember, and especially application parts. And the next question here is consider the following statements regarding United Nations Declaration on Human Rights of Indigenous People. So recently, 2 days back, we already discussed about one editorial regarding the Western Ghats conservation, which appeared in the Hindu paper. So in that Hindu paper, we came up with this United Nations Declaration on Rights of Indigenous People. So I took this topic for this question. So the statement says that the declaration addresses both individual and as well as collective rights of indigenous people. And the second statement says India voted against the declaration at the United Nations. So if you say the first statement, it is correct, and second statement is wrong, because India voted not against. India voted for this declaration at United Nations. So this question mainly demanding to identify the correct statements. So the correct answer here is only one. So correct option will be option A. So if you see the explanation, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, it is a comprehensive statement, mainly addresses both the human rights of the indigenous people. It will address the individual and as well as the community rights. And this declaration mainly addresses both the individual and as well as the collective rights, also cultural rights, identity, right to education, health, employment, language, etc. And this document mainly emphasizes the rights of these indigenous people to live with dignity and to maintain and strengthen their own institutions and to protect their culture and the traditions, etc. India voted mainly in the favor of this United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People 2007. So these are some important things that you should remember. And now let us see the next question. Consider the following statements with respect to National Common Mobility Card. So we already discussed about this National Common Mobility Card in our PIB analysis. So now let us see the statements. The first one is it is an initiative under Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and this National Common Mobility Card, it is an automatic fare collection system. So this question mainly demanding to identify the correct statements. So as we know, it is an initiative under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and it is also one of the automatic fare collection system. So the option here is both 1 and 2, that is option C. If you see the explanation, our Indian Prime Minister recently inaugurated fully operational National Common Mobility Card service on Airport Express line of Delhi Metro. So it comes under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and this National Common Mobility Card mainly helps to seamless travel by different metros and as well as other transport system across the country. Okay, and it will also helps to travel easily and as well as whichever public transport that are adopting by the travelers. And this idea of this NCMC mainly put forward by the Nandan Nilekani Committee, so which was set up by the RBI. So you need to remember this Nandan Nilekani Committee regarding this National Common Mobility Card. So it is also an automatic fare collection system. how it is an automatic fare collection system. So it will turn the smartphones into the interoperable transport card. So in this way, with these smartphones, the commuters, they can pay for the metro, bus and as well as suburban railways. So because of this, it is called as automatic fare collection system. And now let us see the last question of the day. Consider the following statements with respect to pneumococcal disease. So why this pneumococcal disease in the news? Because India came up with the first fully indigenized pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, that is Pneumosil. So because of this pneumococcal disease is in news. So now let us see the statements. Pneumococcal disease is caused by virus. Second one is Pneumosil. It is the India's first fully indigenously developed pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. As the context which is present in the second statement is right. But if you are seeing about this pneumococcal disease, it is mainly caused by the bacteria, not virus, that is Streptococcus pneumoniae. So this first statement will be wrong. So the question which is mainly demanding to identify the correct answer. So the correct answer here is only statement 2. So that is option B. So now let us see the explanation. So recently India came up with the first fully indigenously developed pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, that is Pneumosil. So this pneumococcal disease, it is mainly caused by the bacteria, that is Streptococcus pneumoniae or pneumococcus. So this bacteria, which is one of the most important cause for the infections like pneumonia, meningitis and as well as middle ear infection in the younger children. So this pneumonia mainly causes the infection in the lungs. So many different bacteria, virus, fungus and as well as some other things which also cause infection in the lungs. But one of the important bacteria mainly contributing this pneumonia here is Streptococcus pneumoniae. So it is most commonly caused by this bacteria. And this pneumococcus, it is one of the most common cause for the severe pneumonia. So because of this, doctor mainly consider some of these infections as the most invasive infections. And if you are talking about the disease burden in India, annually India witnesses about 71% of the pneumonia deaths and about 57% of severe pneumonia cases. So the disease burden which is high. And according to the WHO, that is World Health Organization, it says that pneumonia accounts for 15% of the deaths of the children under 5 years across the world. So these are some statistics regarding this disease. So these statistics that can be used in the means. So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you so much.